Hey everybody, Sean Hamel here with another episode of the Origins podcast. Today I have a very special guest, somebody that I'm Facebook stalked for a while, and then he finally wrote me back. Dr. Richard Lowe, it's awesome to have you on the podcast. Thanks so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. And I was floored by our conversation we had last week. I had to reschedule last minute, and I was like, but dude, I just want to talk. And it's fun when you connect with someone, you're like, oh, like, did we just become best friends? Like,
We can do karate in the garage for sure.
Exactly.
And then I had to reschedule. Full disclosure, I had to reschedule this morning too. So it's just one of those things, but all good. And I'm really glad to have you on. Obviously, the legend precedes you, if you will. I mean, I've heard of you. I've seen what you're doing. I've seen a lot of your content just floating around Instagram. We're in a lot of the same Facebook groups. We swim in a lot of the same circles. We were just talking about Dave Rice, Dr. Rice, my Florida sushi buddy and restaurateur. Dave always knows the best places to go for anything. And you'll have to ask Dave sometime, or I'll try to get him to tell you the story of there's like a Russian doll store near where he lives in St. Pete. And it's the creepiest place. And I swear, like we walked in and nothing had been touched or dusted. It's just there. And the lady
white elephant. If you ever need a white elephant gift and you're in that neck of the woods, that's the place to go.
Oh, but she was like adamant not to, like, don't touch anything. And so we were just like, okay. And anyways, you'll have to have Dave unpack that story for you. It was really funny. And I will never go in another like nesting doll store for as long as I live. I got scared straight. But Doc, it's awesome to have you on here. And I know you and I had a lot of synergy when we talked. But I also know you've really been through a lot in terms of going the dental route, starting the practice, being super successful. Like you did everything everybody wants to do, and a lot of doctors aspire to do, even climbing the mountain of being the CEO of a multi-location group, and really kind of finding yourself along the way. And obviously I want you to tell that story. But start us on the journey. How did you get to where you are? How did you find out that dentistry was something that you wanted to do?
Sure.
How did your origin, if you will, in dentistry start?
Yeah. I was doing, and by the way, it's funny, like whenever you like go behind the scenes, you realize that like, oh, I actually like my problems and their problems kind of suck. And I will say that side hustles for 8 years plus, being the CEO of a 35 office dental group, a lot of these things, people who just focus on one thing, like building one large healthy practice, their life is actually significantly better and sometimes even like more lucrative than other things. So sometimes these episodes create a lot of FOMO of like, oh no, I should be doing these things. And it's like, actually, no, there's consequences to doing weird stuff. No, I did a 2-year mission trip for my church in Los Angeles, Spanish speaking, and hung out with some USC dental students who they would have us over for dinner. And the more they talked about dentistry, getting to serve patients, have your own business, using your hands, I was like, this is cool. I went and did a humanitarian trip in undergrad to Guatemala, doing a dental trip, and that was awesome. And I was in, and I got the Army to pay for dental school. I was really fortunate to do the HPSB scholarship. In dental school, I don't know, I've been like a serial entrepreneur since I was like 8 years old, selling popsicles at a stand in the neighborhood. And I couldn't help myself, even in dental school. I got my real estate license, second year of dental school, and then senior year, I threw myself at Howard Ferran in Dentaltown and ended up producing his podcast for the last 9 months of dental school. And that's where my love for podcasting was born, because I was so desperate for any knowledge about how to buy, run, grow a dental practice, the entrepreneurial side of dentistry. And at the time, there were not a lot of dental podcasts. There was very few that would like dive deep into topics. And I was just hungry for it. On my commute every day, 30 minutes there and back from dental school, I was like binge listening to everything I could get my hands on. And, at some point, Howard Ferran and Mark Costes and Alan Mead, some of my influences, they would talk with me and they're like, you should start your own. And I was like, I'm a new dentist in the Army. Who's going to listen to a podcast from me about practice ownership? when obviously it's like, I am not an expert. It would be hypocritical for me to tell people what to do because I couldn't even do it for a number of years. So that's my origin through dental school and up to the point where I was about to start a podcast.
Interesting. So, I mean, it's crazy to think that even in dental school that you just had like the desire even took the step in vulnerability to reach out to those people. And I meet a lot of dental students, we all do, and a lot of them, they kind of come off as like they don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And so it's like standing at an intersection and they just keep looking like different directions, right? How did you find it within yourself, or what was it within you that was like, yeah, I'm going to reach out, like I'm going to swing for the fences? The reason I ask you that is because a lot of the really good things in my life, from like playing music to even how ADM came into being, has just been like blindly jumping off cliffs. And obviously, that's not good for everybody. And with me, especially with music and even ADM to an extent, there's a lot of like just luck that has to fall into place for things to work. But how did you approach somebody like that? Or if there's a dental student listening that wants to reach out to you, or that wants to reach
Right.
out to another influencer in dental, like what advice would you give them to do that, or at least to be more comfortable doing that?
Yeah, there was a book I read. I read the book. I was a huge audiobook person. I've always been audio. I'm ADHD, so like conversations I can pay attention to. But if someone has a solo podcast where they're just speaking themselves for like an hour, I can't do it. Um, but audiobooks, there was this audiobook called Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi, and it was a networking book that wasn't like, here's my business card, shake hands. It was like, how can you make deep connections with people and how can you serve people? It's like, rather than what can I get out of this person, it's like, how can I help this person? And how do you get around like their gatekeepers? Like, how do you get around the front desk that won't let you talk to the dentist, or the secretary that's supposed to protect the CEO? And really, I actually wrote a list. I wrote a list of names in the Phoenix Valley where I was going to dental school, which there's a lot of dentistry between Scottsdale and, massive metro, of people I wanted to get to know, and just reached out. And surprisingly, people will respond. It might take a try or two, and maybe some of them aren't as nice as you'd think, but you have an advantage as a dental student where um, you can ask to like shadow their office or come learn. And people, when someone's really genuinely enthusiastic to learn from someone, I think people like to share and mentor. And when you just say, hey, I've followed what you've done, I'm super inspired, I would love to come maybe shadow your office or dental town, or your consulting company, your marketing agency, um, people generally don't say no to that. And then sometimes you can say like, I would love to intern, I would love to help, and see if there's any value you can provide. I had to beg Dental Town multiple times. They were like, go away, we need full-time people, we don't want you. And eventually I wore them down, and it led into that opportunity. So yeah, that book, I literally created a list of people in the dental space that I wanted to connect with and learn from.
And such great advice. And it's funny meeting a lot of influencers, especially doctors, how much they want to pass that knowledge down. Like it's not a bother to them. They really would be honored to invest in someone or multiple people. And definitely, if there's a doctor, new doctor, established doctor, I would encourage you to. A lot of the best things that have happened to me have just been from reaching out. Like we were joking about Dr. Rice. I bugged him for like 2 years because he was just marketer aversive, and understandable, right? A lot of dental marketers, we don't have to pull that ripcord, but and how responsive people are on social media, especially Instagram. A lot of these people that feel untouchable, they will respond to you. And advice I would give as well is like, come to people with specific ideas. I teach doctors this all the time. Like if you go across the street and there's an apartment complex and you walk in and say, hey, I'm a dentist, and they go, okay, great. And then the doctor goes, all right, bye. And that's usually the extent of it. And they're like, well, we're ground marketing. Go over there with a specific idea. A lot of businesses and in relationships. Have you read the book Who Not How, the Dan Kennedy book?
No, but I love Dan Kennedy, and it sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's all about, instead of like how do I do this, who do I need basically to do this, is kind of the 65,000 foot view of that book. But if you come to people with specific ideas, especially that are mutually beneficial, it's a lot easier to get engagement with them. So, like that same apartment complex, if you come over there and say, "Hey, could we do a resident event? Is there anything we can maybe provide, uh, like beach balls for the pool noodles? Do you need specific things?" It's a lot easier to get the luck factor to work in your favor. And with the influencers in dental specifically, like, I mean, I would consider you an influencer. A lot of people know you have a great reputation. I know a lot of doctors follow you and look up to you for guidance. What would like stand out to you, say, if somebody were wanting to reach out to you for mentorship, or maybe what in the messages that you sent to Howard do you think really got their attention? Or was it just that like constant repeated, like just grit of follow up, follow up, follow up?
I think the relentlessness of it, the wanting to help, going in person, if there's people in your area, just getting in person, it makes a huge difference. Just thinking of, is there a way to help? Is there a way to intern? Is there a way to provide value? Just like you said, that makes such a big difference. And I will say, having a platform yourself makes a massive difference. I've realized that like podcasts are hard to grow. There's so much competition. People are either podcast people or they're not. And, right now I don't have a commute. And so I have like this backlog of podcasts and audiobooks and everything that I'm behind on. And so if someone were to try to get me to listen to a new podcast, I'd be like, it's just never going to happen. But if you've got a platform, you've got a YouTube channel, you've got an Instagram channel, you've got a Facebook group, you've got a podcast, all of a sudden it ends up serving as this really cool tool to network. And so, to the dental student, be involved in like a business club and then reach out to people and see if they'll do a lecture for your business club so that they can, foster that next generation. So that I think that would be the next thing is there's especially podcasting, Facebook group, Instagram. Once you get into video production is like a heavier lift, but audio only or a Facebook group where you're providing a lot of value, there's really no risk, just a lot of time. There's not a lot of cost. And if you can serve people through those platforms, you then get the chance to meet cool people. That's what shared practices turned into. I mean, I came at this from the perspective of like, I want to know how to buy a dental practice. I want to know if that's right for me. Like season one was, is practice ownership even really a fit for me? And is it worth it? And is it, too risky? And the hypothesis of our podcast was, if you're interested in it and you're willing to do the work to learn to be an entrepreneur, it's absolutely worth it. And the sooner you can get into the right practice, the better off everything else is going to be in terms of your growth and trajectory. And so then season two was, how do I find the right practice to acquire? And we did like 40 episodes. We like dove into profit and loss statements and like evaluation and pricing structure, like stuff that was way too deep for a podcast format, like talking about line items of P&Ls and production reports and all the reports you would pull, and ground marketing to find practices. How do you find people behind the scenes? And that really took off and got a lot of traction because at the time there wasn't a ton of information. And I just positioned myself as a leading learner. I'm trying to learn this for myself. And if someone else can benefit from this, great. But it also made me really hungry, and I wasn't going to settle for like a superficial principle-based answer. It was like, no, we're going to keep digging. And eventually we got over 500 5-star reviews on iTunes. We became the #1 rated dental podcast because we served this specific niche of young dentists. I knew that the older dentists wouldn't care who I was as a new grad. Young dentists who wanted to own, who were very entrepreneurial. And that turned into a consulting company. That turned into in-person courses. We did, and we still do, buyer's representation, helping people find practices. And then somehow that turned into a denture implant DSO. And so it was kind of a crazy arc. And I didn't even get out of the Army until 2021. So a lot of this was 5 years while I was still in the Army, kind of side hustling this and bringing on partners. So just kind of which I don't necessarily recommend. And not great for your marriage or your mental health or burnout or sustainability, but I loved it. And so I kind of couldn't help myself.
That's awesome. And thank you very much for your service, by the way. That always admire that and appreciate that in doctors. But I wanted to lean into this, and this was kind of where I was going to go next. And you had already started to hit on it. Is you shared aspects of your journey and the not so pretty side of the journey. And I mean, I worry about dentists collectively too, as we talked about. I got into dental marketing helping a friend. I never got into this to make money.
Yeah.
And I mean, that alone separates me from like 99.5% of the marketing companies out. But a lot of the marketing companies don't care to leave a wake of destruction behind them. And I'll happily say that. I mean, it is what it is. Bring up dental marketing in a Facebook group and see what the doctors say, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not like, this isn't the only vertical that kind of chews dentists up and spits them out, especially when they're too green to really know what to look for. They're doing a lot of like decision making based on what have other people done, not necessarily what's best for me. And I know you went through even reaching the success that I think a lot of doctors are chasing. You hit those marks and kind of blew them away, but you still hit that point of burnout, frustration. We talked about the personal life effects that it had, the detriment to your health. And, the suicide rate, like we talked about, is very real. I know doctors, I'm sure you know doctors that have made bad decisions, unfortunately. And there's so much stress, graduating, the competition, the saturation, the fact that you have all these people just feeding on you, trying to get money out of you or to sell you expensive things, and you don't know which way to turn or who to listen to. Everybody that's kind of a friend is really just kind of a hiding behind a veil of they just want to sell you something.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, dentists just have this inherent thing beaten into them where they're constantly seeing other doctors and they're basing their success on where other people are. And again, I'm not a dentist. I've met thousands of them, and I have a heart for them as an entrepreneur and a business owner too. And just seeing what happens to them by marketers, consultants, all these people out that, again, they just leave a wake of destruction behind them, and they don't care because there really is no consequence. If you do a bad enough job, just change your name and start over, and nobody knows who you are. But it's one of those things where I think having people like you talk about the fact that, like, if you feel burnout, if you feel stressed, if you're not in a place where you're sleeping well or any of these things, or you feel like a failure because you have an older used vehicle and not a brand new vehicle, even though your friend from dental school has two brand new vehicles, like, how do you really communicate to people the dark side of that growth and the aspects of your story that aren't pretty? But I really think, to any doctor listening to this, if you're in a valley or a low point or you feel like a failure, I would highly doubt that you are. But just to know that doctors like you have gone through those same things and it's temporary and you can rise out of it. But I know that was kind of a long segue and intro into this, but it is something I take really personally, as we've talked about. And I do want to leave this industry better than I found it. And I know you do too.
Yeah.
Like, what do you typically share with people on that part of your journey? Like the dark side, I guess you could say, of the journey.
Yeah. No, and I'll tell you, I'm also king of like compound podcast questions with my guests. It's like I ask like 5 questions within one, and I'm like, just say whatever you want, like,
yeah, just say whatever you want.
Just say whatever you want. No, I think people see like this ever grow. One of the biggest problems in dentistry is there's such a wide spectrum of possibility. And as someone who doesn't own a dental practice, there's a wide range of incomes as an associate. There's this like FOMO and pressure that like maybe I should own, and that's what everyone says you should do. I'm scared, insurance, debt, all these things. And then once you get into practice ownership, there's a massive spectrum of like, I am losing money every month. I can't pay myself, and I am like dying, and I feel stuck in this practice. It's an upside down asset. So like negative income all the way up to $1 million plus a year. And you just own this like massive healthy asset. But also along that entire spectrum, I think the unhappiness skews a little bit more towards the like dying end. But even the people who are successful and growing and making a bunch of money, the problems don't go away. And we think there's some pot of happiness at the end of the rainbow, and oftentimes there's not. And we always compare ourselves. So like on our podcast, we would interview people all the time who bought the right practice, grew it extremely fast, 50 to 100% growth in their first year because they identified that like ready to grow acquisition. And then everyone listening was like, I want that. And then their story didn't turn out the same way. Well, the same thing happened to me. I mean, I bought 3 practices while I was still in the Army in about 2018, 2019, and which is insane. Don't do that if you're in the military. And then COVID hit. I bought them with some partners because it was a $2.7 million acquisition price. The monthly payment was $30K a month just for the loan. And they were good, healthy offices. They all had doctors in place. But when you aggregate 3 offices together, you have 3 teams, 3 sets of equipment they're going to break, triple the drama, triple the things that can go wrong. And so it felt like all the fires, everything, every time my phone rang and it was from my regional manager or one of those offices, I didn't want to answer it. Like I was like terrified to pick it up. And so after a couple of years and after getting through COVID, I was like, this is not for me. I don't like multi-practice ownership. And my partners were such good people, I exited that partnership. So I actually left, kind of wiped the slate clean. I didn't earn anything from it, but I didn't lose any money. You know, I got a little bit of distributions along the way, got some experience, got some scars. And yeah, and then I bought 2 denture and implant or 2 denture offices that weren't particularly healthy. And I added implants and took on some costs and hired doctors too early. Despite having podcasted about practice ownership, it was a very different model than a GP model. No hygiene, very high risk, high reward. If new patients are coming in, you can do a lot of production, but people don't get all of their teeth pulled twice. So once you've pulled all their teeth, they're no longer a recurring patient in your office. I lost 200K in the back half of that first year because, you know, my marketing I hadn't figured out quite yet, and I brought on doctors too soon. I had a location and a half, kind of a mini location and a full-size location. And by the end of that year, I was so, you know, I hadn't paid myself an owner distribution the whole time I owned that practice. And I had to fire a doctor and close a location and kind of take back over full-time all of the days at the one main location. And you know, I felt like a hypocrite, like a failure, having podcasted about this for so long. And then my shared practices partners came to me and they said, we're going to do a DSO. I was like, I just got out of a DSO. Like, I'm done with this. But they're like, we're going to do denture and implant. And, you know, I needed a lot of help in that front with our marketing. And they had it dialed in. They had it figured out. And so I merged up with them and we started a denture and implant group. We took out $6 million in debt in the first year. We opened 10 offices our first year. We had some home run markets. Things were kind of very successful very quickly. And then we opened 20 offices the next year. And somewhere along the line, I was the CEO of all this, very unqualified CEO. I was still full-time clinical at first, and then I found a great doctor to replace me, and I stepped back. I actually liked being full-time clinical because then no one expected anything of me. They're like, oh yeah, he's the CEO and overwhelmed, and he's the full-time clinical and overwhelmed. So it's like if I didn't respond to my emails or my texts or anything, there was kind of like an excuse for it. So it was a cop-out to not be better at all of the things I should have been good at. And then once I went full-time non-clinical, I realized I have way more anxiety and stress and worry than I realized. I tend to take on a lot of the anxiety of the people I'm working with and around them. I worry a lot about them. I worried a lot about our doctors in their journeys and the ups and downs. It's a very stressful model, a ton of surgery. You can change lives and it's amazing. And we did so much to support them and teach them. But at the end of the day, some doctors don't work out and some offices don't work out. And so I was the one who ended up having to fire doctors. I was good at crucial conversations. And so they could tell that I cared about them as I had to let them go from our company. Same thing, closing offices. And the stress of opening 20 offices in a single year, on top of everything else, it killed me. And I was really unhealthy. I was unhealthy in my marriage, my physical health, my mental health, my sleep. I was sleeping 3 to 5 hours a night very often, and started to unravel. And I hit a point where I could tell that I was not the right person to lead this company, that I was holding it back due to my lack of leadership, my lack of self-control, my lack of being able to handle the stress. So I stepped down and I became the chief clinical officer. And what that meant was all of the problem doctors were on my plate. You can have 30 amazing doctors, and then you have 5 doctors who just make everyone miserable, and are toxic people. And unfortunately, those people exist, and you can't always tell before you hire them that they're gonna be sociopaths. And I really hit the wall and realized I can't do this. So I kind of quit completely. I stepped back and I said, "Hey guys, I need 2 months of unpaid medical leave to figure out mental health stuff to save my marriage. I'm dying. I can't do this." And I felt awful. I felt bad, and embarrassed to my partners on the podcast, on to my doctors and our teams. But this just wasn't working, and it wasn't worth it. If I lost everything that mattered most to me, it wasn't worth it to try and build something this big. And it was something I never really wanted. It was like my partners wanted to grow and scale, and I was really nervous about it. And it turned out that I was right. Like, I'm not built for DSO, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay not building multi-practice businesses. So yeah, that was my journey to like really crashing and burning in a very real sense. And it felt really embarrassing to do that at the time.
Where did all the self-awareness and self-discovery come from? Like, I mean, I know as humans, and I go through this too. I mean, you always have that little nudge inside you. You have that voice, the intuition, whatever you want to call it. But where did that come from? Was it just something self-realized, or were you working with like, did you have like a mentor, or where? How did you kind of unravel that to even know it was time to change something?
Yeah, I mean, it's just crap hit the wall, or the
Mm-hmm.
fan. I joined a men's group called Superhuman Fathers, which is a ridiculous name. Every dad wants to be superhuman for their family and their kids, and it was a bait and switch. They promised you a 6-pack, abs, that you're going to get strong, you're going to get in the best
I was
shape
going
of
to
your
say,
life.
what? Six-pack of what?
6-pack of abdominals, not beer. And I'd never been strong. I was a soft nerd my entire life. My wife and our third daughter, when she was born about 2 years ago, I like kept up with her whole pregnancy. She would gain weight and I would gain weight. And then she had the baby and dropped 20 pounds. And I was like, oh crap. Like I didn't expect that. Now I'm stuck here. Um, and so I just always had a chip on my shoulder. I was never like a Division I athlete. I never figured that side out. Even in the Army, I failed the PT test, which is super embarrassing, to be able to not hit the number of push-ups and sit-ups and run speed, or the 2 mile run time. And
What is the 2 mile run time? I'm curious.
for my age group, it was like 16:30, 16:40.
Whew.
So, like 8 minute, 20-second mile, not incredibly fast by any stretch, but some guys could roll out of, and female dentists could roll out of bed and just like crush that, no thought. I had to train for like months to hit that. And then as soon as I'd take the test, I would stop training for 3 months and the cycle would repeat. So I had not figured out the smart thing to do. Um, but I joined this men's group because I saw another another guy in the dental field, Emmett Scott. He's now the CEO of Dental Entrepreneur Organization, DEO. They help multi-practice groups to like have a mastermind. Really cool organization. And Emmett shared his transformation from stage. He showed he'd lost 80 to 100 pounds. He had a 6-pack for the first time in his life. He talked about what that did for his marriage, his confidence, his ability to keep up to his teenage kids, and even that he'd kind of reconnected with faith and had more purpose. And I was just like, shut up and take my money. I am dying. I need something. And this group ended up being the most authentic, vulnerable group of men that just cared about each other. And they were very open about addictions and getting honest with spouses and with God and learning discipline. Very like intense. Sometimes like men need intensity. They need someone yelling at them. Sports and military and all of that. We tend to thrive in certain at least some of us do in certain situations like that. And it was very motivating for me. And I remember Thanksgiving, this is after I'd stepped down as CEO and before I'd quit altogether. Thanksgiving morning at like 4:30, 5 a.m. in the parking lot of Vasa Fitness, journaling before I went in and did my workout and just like crying because I realized I was starting to respect myself again. I was starting to like have hope that I could have control. I felt like a non-functional adult. I was like, how did I get here? How am I the CEO of this group? And I started to see glimmers of hope. And so it was really this format, this group of high accountability, fitness, nutrition, journaling, life coaching, focus on marriage, on faith, and service that helped me really stare at the ugly parts of myself and work on overcoming them. And so yeah, I attribute Superhuman Fathers, Kyle Carnahan is what saved me from kind of the worst of myself and helped me wake up to the changes I need to make in my life.
That's incredibly powerful. I've heard that story before, but I think you told it a little bit different this time, and I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm curious, through that transformation, even though I'm sure at moments like it felt like failure to take a step back, what was it? Was there a moment in that transformation or in that 2 month hiatus that you took where you took like maybe like what was the first step that you took? Was it looking for help? Would you say it was just admitting that there actually was a problem? Like if
Yeah.
somebody's watching this and they're identifying with a lot of what you're saying, but it just feels overwhelming to do what you've done, what's maybe like a step they can take, or how can they get in touch with you to learn more about what you do? Because I want you to share what you're up to now
Sure.
as well. But what's maybe just an initial step? Somebody that's burnout and exhausted and doesn't know where to turn and doesn't want to be vulnerable. Where can they go and what can they do?
Yeah. So I think key is we feel so alone and so isolated in dentistry. Like when you don't have any, like you think everyone else is happy and successful, and I'm dying inside and I'm having panic attacks on the way to work, or I'm barely making ends meet at my office, or I'm just terrified of the next person who quits, or a patient suing me, or whatever it is. My marriage is falling apart, my health, I'm worried about hurting my back and not being able to provide for my family. Um, Finding your tribe of people that you can trust enough to be authentic with and open up about. And I've recently realized, so I'm helping people in two ways on that. Number one, I've started a Facebook group called Next Level Dentist Rising Beyond Burnout. And I just started this a few weeks ago because I realized I'd posted about anxiety. Like panic attacks are new for me in the last year. Despite after having stepped down and working on my mental health. And I posted about that in a few dental Facebook groups, and it was just like 80 responses of people just saying like, yes, this is me. And so I started this Facebook group, and it's trying to be a positive space to share struggles, but overcoming them, what's worked for you, and therapy and community and support. And so many people are just like, oh my goodness, like I didn't know I could talk about these things, and where that other people were struggling. So just not being alone, number one. But I would also say that really finding your people that you can connect with and align with, not just in a superficial Facebook group way, but on a deeper level. And so, I had a friend who joined, one of my best friends from dental school, Dr. Hunter Bennett he's near Naples, Florida. He's an endodontist.
Poor guy.
I know, right?
Poor Hunter.
Right. It's a hard life. He had seen like the journey I was going on, and he was like, I want to join this men's group. And he joined, and he realized like these guys were pretty blue collar superhuman fathers. They were like, every other word was the F word, but it was the most sincere swearing. They're just like, that's so effing awesome, I'm coming back to Christ and all these things. It's just, they were police officers and sales guys and prior military. But he trusted the process. He stuck with the group and had an amazing journey and experience, got his six pack, all the things. But he turned to me, he's like, Richard, you need to start this for dentistry. You need to start a men's group where we can be honest and vulnerable about the real stuff we're going through, but in a more professional, buttoned up way. He's like, you can build better systems, you can build a better back end, you can support people better than this group. They hadn't scaled particularly well. Their onboarding sucked. Their, like customer service in a lot of ways. They were all heart and soul, very little like understanding how to build a scalable or sustainable business at least. And so we did. So this last November, started a men's group. We're now at just over 30 dentists. We've lost a combined 450 pounds since November.
Gosh, that's awesome.
It's crazy. And, these guys are like, I haven't been in this shape since college or high school. Like, I haven't been able to wear pants this size. My wife definitely notices people around. They're inspiring their office managers and family members to change. But more importantly, like, we're kind of there for each other through all the crap, through the family stuff, through the dental office stuff. Just this last week, one of my good friends in the program reached out to a former partner who they had left on a bad note, and this relationship was a big rift. And he's like, you know what? Meditating, journaling, reflecting, I realized I needed to reach out and say sorry for who I was. And they reconnected, and that guy called me. He's like, what is this group? I just got one of my best friends back. I never would have expected him to come do this. There's other dentists who are overcoming addiction. Some of them are going through divorces. Some of them are in really hard times, but they have more support and connection now and are happier than when they were kind of burned out or settling for good enough as a dentist. And we all push each other and inspire each other. Just this morning on our check-in call, there was a doctor who's like yelling at everyone. It was great. Like, we don't buy each other's crap. It's like we're gonna call each other out when we're serving BS excuses. And that's what inspires and pushes us. So it's our own brand of crazy. But if someone's interested in that group, it's Next Level Fathers. And I'd say, friend me on Facebook or on Instagram, Richard Lowe, dr.richard.lowe on Instagram. Shoot me a message and we'll talk and see if it's a fit. I don't let everyone in, and it's not the right fit for most people. Sometimes you need therapy. Sometimes you need something else, and it's not get a six pack and join this insane accountability group. But I'd love to have conversations, or if anyone's really struggling, join the Facebook or talk to me. You just need someone to open up to about what's going on. I'm happy to be that person.
It's amazing what you're doing. And obviously a fan, and we've talked offline about just a lot of stuff that we don't need to put on the podcast, but I've gone through a lot of things too, just as an entrepreneur and with life and stuff. And so I identify with a lot of this too. And I know there's a sect of the dental world that's not dentists that tune into these episodes because they love hearing the stories of how people like you got to where you are. And we've been really blessed to have some really amazing people. Emmett did an episode with me, actually.
Oh, nice.
But we've been really blessed to have a lot of amazing people to come on and tell their story. And so definitely, if you're watching, reach out to Dr. Lowe, reach out to that mentor that you've idolized for a long time. Something I wanted to hit on too, because you talked about isolation and we talked about this. Really be careful with where you're getting the self-help info from. Especially people that anybody can jump on the internet and be an expert and an influencer now. And there's a lot of things, especially in the entrepreneurial world, around like ghost mode, monk mode, isolate, cut everybody off. Don't do that.
No,
it's definitely not the way to do it. It's not the healthiest way to do it. Know that there are people out there that want a community with you. They want to welcome you into one. And just knowing that there's people that feel the same way that you do, that have the same problems that you do, or maybe they've solved the problems that you've already solved. If you can identify with where Dr. Lowe was in the past, who better to get help to get out of the rut than somebody that's actually been in the middle of it. But there's so much on social media, and I warn anybody that'll listen, just to be really careful with a lot of the self-help stuff. A lot of it started with David Goggins, who's an amazing author. The guy's a machine. Not everybody can be that guy, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody can lose 90 pounds in 30 minutes. Like,
Well, and a lot of his stuff, like him, Mr. Beast, there's some people that, if you hear their backstories, a lot of their drive comes from a place of darkness and pain.
mhm.
And that fuel will push you for a long time, but it's like diesel. It's like it is kind of not clean burning fuel. There are side effects to just like letting bitterness be this insane driver. You can do crazy things and earn people's respect doing that, but I think you got to look for where's the source of my motivation, and that you're absolutely right. You have to be super careful. And I've loved there was an Andrew Huberman podcast talking about like, do you have two people that aren't your immediate family that like you kind of reach out to on a daily basis, that you could like send them a text in the morning and they're checking on you, you're checking on them? That's the kind of like supportive, real friendship that people need, not isolate and hustle and grind. It's not another, like the next level dentist for me, my hypothesis is not practice number 2. It's not more CE. It's like finding a life and purpose and connection and service that is next level. Like, can I be the healthiest I've ever been? Can my marriage be better than it's ever been? Can I be a better parent, a father or mother, and more connected to God than I've ever been? You know, can I revitalize these other areas of my life? Because dentistry, I think for a long time, it can be a source of growth and fulfillment. And there is an infinite learning curve. You can always be better. You can always learn new procedures. You can always try and grow more. But at some point, you need to deprioritize. You need to de-invest. I don't even think that's a word. Your identity into
It's cool.
dentistry.
We'll trademark it. It's all good.
Trademark it. Yeah, just like pull some of your identity out of being a dentist, because what if you get disabled? What if you retire? Like that, if that is your personality in your life, I think you're a little unbalanced. I think there's some room to find more of you than just dentistry.
Couldn't agree more. I meet so many doctors, especially with being story-based marketing. They're like, well, I don't have a story. And then you start peeling back layers and they have an incredible story of how they've gotten to where they are, what they've done, what their motivations are. So if you feel like you don't have a story and you're watching the show, I assure you that you do. Those dark moments, maybe the moments that you're kind of ashamed of, would give more people strength than you probably realize. And definitely find an outlet for it. I tell doctors all the time, like you alluded to, I'm not a DSO person. You can kind of take that mindset across everything. So if you do have something to say, your patient experience personality is your market differentiator. It's not anything else. But do vlogging, do podcasting, write, journal, put as much as you want out there. You can gatekeep what you want to share. But I think a lot of people listening would be surprised what impact you could have just sharing how you got to where you are and who you are. And even looking at the impact of you, Doc, just all the things you've done, the impact you had when you were not even out of dental school or barely out of dental school, and the impact you've had throughout your career has just been seismic in ways. Everybody knows who you are. But it's just to see the humbleness on this side of it too. We meet a lot of people in dental and that kind of gets lost to profit and things like that. And everybody wants to be successful. And I think everybody to a degree likes to share little aspects of who they are with humility. And, I think the world of Emmett too. He shared some of his story and what he's gone through. And he definitely is just somebody that I look up to as well, what he's been able to accomplish. But there's a lot of Emmets out there, and there's a lot of people in speaking circuits and things that you may go to for CE, or you may go to for a different aspect of treatment or something like that. But if you get a chance to talk to him, you'd be amazed how many people you might really align with just based on where they come from, rough childhoods. Go through the Origins library, not plugging the show, but kind of. Go through the past episodes. I mean, we have Steve Anderson, Dave Rice. There's all kinds of people that have done the show. Eric Roman, one of my favorite people on earth. Eric. All of them have, it hasn't been an easy ride. I've never met anybody that it's been like, oh yeah, man, I just did this thing and everything's good. Like everybody has a perilous journey to get to where they are. So if you are burned out, if you're clinging to hope, maybe you don't know which way to turn. Maybe you don't know why you clicked on this podcast, but you listened to this whole thing. We're at the 46-minute mark. We went way over our normal time.
Sorry.
But no, this has been incredible. Please reach out to Dr. Lowe. Reach out to me. I can get you connected with him. For some reason you can't. If you're interested in getting involved with his group, let me know. If you're a female doctor listening to this and you're identifying with a lot of this, I have people I can point you to as well, where you can get some support, get plugged in with good people that I know and trust and have vetted, where you can just get some community and things like that going on too. Doctor, thank you so much. I really appreciate just you and who you are, and this friendship that we've kind of initiated, and the fact that we're kind of going through and finding out we know a lot of the same people. Has been awesome. But thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to staying in touch.
All right, Doc. Thank you.